Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. It's often said that Filipinos are too forgiving, that we have short-term memories. Iilan na lang ba sa atin ang nakakaalala sa Hello Garci? But I believe that many Filipinos still remember as I do. And I know that I won in the 2013 elections precisely because people remember FPJ and the great injustice Mrs. Arroyo committed against the voters. Hello Garci, for better or worse, changed the course of history in the Philippines. I ask that you indulge me for the next few minutes as I bring you back to our nation's history in 2004 presidential elections. Election fraud is nothing new in the Philippines. It has been with us since even before our republic was born. In fact, in the very first election to decide who should be the leader of the new republic, Bonifacio accused Aguinaldo of cheating. Bonifacio refused to abide by the results of the Tejeros Convention, and in the end, he paid the ultimate price in the hands of his own comrades at the foothills of Maragondon. May kasabihan sa Pilipinas na walang politikong natatalo, nadadaya lang. This is how they trivialize election results. But the case of Fernando Poe Jr. was very different. For the very first time, there was real, clear, hard evidence to prove that massive cheating did take place in 2004. Aside from the notorious Hello Garci wiretaps, which captured Gloria Arroyo talking to then COMELEC Commissioner Garciliano, there is a host of other evidentiary proof to show that the Arroyo camp cheated their way to victory. This presentation is from the painstaking research of Marichu Vera Perez Maceda, and I would like to thank her, as the following presentation that we are about to show will illustrate how Garci and his minions succeeded in subverting the will of the people.
Hello, Garci. Hello, ma'am. Good morning. Okay, ma'am. Mas mataas po siya, pero mag-compensate ko sa lanaw yun.
So, will I still lead by more than 1M?
Overall, it's not advantage, ma'am. Parang ganun din ang lalabas.
It will not be less than 1M?
Pipilitin mo natin niya, pero as of the other day, it's 982.
Kaya nga eh.
And then, if we can get more in Lanao.
Hindi mo matapos?
Hindi pa ho. Mayroon pang darating na 7 municipality.
Okay.
Sige po.
Okay.
The presidential elections of 2004 will be long remembered as an electoral exercise marred by massive cheating. A year after the elections, the Hello Garci tapes surfaced, which proved beyond doubt that certain unscrupulous COMELEC officials like Commissioner Garciliano were in cahoots with Gloria Macapagal Arroyo to manipulate the election results in her favor. The Hello Garci tapes provided a smoking gun proof that the will of the people were subverted. Evidence upon evidence showed blatant tampering of election documents, fabricated election results, shameless padding of voters' lists, glaring instances of dagdag bawas, all done with one objective: to manufacture a fake mandate for Mrs. Arroyo. To better understand how they cheated, we must first follow the vote. Ballots were cast and counted in precincts. The tally of votes are sent to the city or municipal hall, where votes are summarized. Vote totals from each election return, or ER, are then sent to the provincial capital, then finally to Congress for canvassing of national positions. Let us take a closer look at the ERs. As required by law, the total of votes is closed by signing of names and affixing of right thumb marks by Board of Election Inspectors. There's no way these small, round marks, some even with artistic designs, were closed with human fingerprints. Notice the ink used were not the same as the grayish-black provided by COMELEC. We cannot overemphasize the fact that the ER is the election document closest to the ballot. The ER therefore reflects the true results of voting. But the scheme did not stop there. The voters' examples show the padding of the voters' list. In the towns of Santander to Bogo, the total number of registered voters was 325,310. But on the summary of statement of votes, the figure has increased to 385,310 votes. In the summary of votes in Compostela to Cordova, the total number of registered voters is 257,800. But in the summary of SOV, the figure has increased to 419,470. In these two cases alone, the total padding of registered voters amounts to 221,570 fake additional voters. The case was no different in Basilan, where the total number of registered voters who actually voted were 130,730, but recorded votes rose to 136,297. Where did the additional 5,567 votes come from? Such padding of registered voters lists was consistently repeated in many other districts. The election returns in Puna Bayabao, Lanao del Sur showed FPJ with 42% of the votes, but the provincial SOV gave GMA 100% and 0 for FPJ. In this SOV, 100% of the votes were for GMA and all other candidates scored 0. This is a statistical impossibility. In Barangay Liangan, the ER showed that there were votes for FPJ and other candidates. In Bumbaran, the ER showed GMA got 27% of the votes and FPJ with 73%. But the municipal canvass and the provincial count revealed an unmistakable switch showing GMA with 74% of votes and FPJ with 26%. In WOW, the ER again showed GMA tailing with 33% of votes and FPJ with 67%. But in the municipal canvass and the provincial count, the figures switched again, showing FPJ with 39% and GMA with 61%. A total of 10,074 votes were affected by dagdag-bawas in the town of Pangutaran, Sulu alone. The fight between FPJ and GMA was made to appear to be close in the whole of Sulu. The ER showed FPJ leading, but the lead changes in municipal and provincial levels. Total votes affected, 53,893. A noteworthy discovery in the municipality of Isulan in Sultan Kudarat showed the registered voters were 300. Actual voters, 300. Look now at GMA's total votes, 1,041. How did that happen? Vote tallies in Maguindanao was stranger. 11 municipalities had no elections, but produced election results showing GMA getting 99% of the votes. Malinaw na malinaw ang dayaan. Kahit na hindi pa natin isinama ang marami pang probinsya na may pruweba ng dayaan. In the end, Mrs. Arroyo got what she wanted, a fabricated margin of 1 million votes.
I was anxious to protect my votes, and during that time, had conversations with many people, including a COMELEC official. I recognize that making any such call was a lapse in judgment. I am sorry.
Kung marumi ang halalan, walang maaasahang tunay na serbisyo ang mamamayan. Ang isang politikong nandaya at namili ng boto ay hindi kailanman maglilingkod ng buong katapatan sa ating sambayanan. To summarize what you had just seen, the 2004 presidential elections was easily one of the dirtiest in history. Sa maraming lugar sa Pilipinas, may mga boto na naka-chamber load para kay Mrs. Arroyo. Sa buong akala ni Mrs. Arroyo, sapat na ang kanyang mga nakabangkong boto para manalo siya. But the Arroyo camp grossly underestimated FPJ's popularity, and a week after the elections, Mrs. Arroyo realized that her buffer votes or chamber-loaded votes were not enough to cover the avalanche of FPJ votes coming in from Metro Manila and the Lingayen-Lucena corridor. This is the reason why Mrs. Arroyo had to call Garci. Seeing that she was losing heavily in Luzon, Mrs. Arroyo realized that she needed Mindanao to win. This is why she made no less than 15 phone calls. GMA realized that the fabricated votes that her minions prepared before the elections were not enough to make her win. The only problem was Mindanao was FPJ's bailiwick. So nahirapan silang manipulahin ang halalan sa pamamagitan lamang ng vote buying. That is why they resorted to rigging the results at the provincial level and then at the national level. As I have shown in my film presentation, lumilitaw na sa maraming bayan sa Mindanao, panalo si FPJ sa municipal canvas level. Pero pagdating sa provincial level, nabaliktad na ang resulta. This was how brazen they were in committing fraud. Kaya sila nabuko. Unlike in certain areas na sinasabi nilang pulido at malinis ang paggagawa, sa Mindanao ay hindi. In our country, many wrongdoers do not get punished, while good people are made to suffer when they come out and speak the truth. We all know what happened to Arroyo and her cohorts, but almost all those who were involved in the Hello Garci tapes have not been charged to date, much less spent a single night in jail, perhaps except Lintang Bidol. Worse, some of those involved are still in government today. Whatever happened to these individuals who figured in the Hello Garci scandal? We have Benjamin Abalos Sr., former COMELEC chairman, resigned after he was implicated in the NBN-ZTE scandal, rumored to have plans to run again for public office after he was briefly imprisoned for the NBN-ZTE scandal. Virgilio Garciliano, former COMELEC commissioner, overall point person in the Hello Garci. He has a current perjury and falsification of public documents pending in the office of the Ombudsman. He ran for Congress in Bukidnon and lost. Lintang Bidol, provincial election supervisor for Sultan Kudarat. He was a point person for the COC manipulation in Cotabato City, currently detained in Camp Crame. Ray Sumalipao, provincial election supervisor Lanao del Sur for May 2004. Alleged role, he's manipulated election results in Lanao del Sur. Currently, he is ARMM Regional Election Director. Ignacio Bunye, former press secretary. Role, covered up the Garci scandal. Status, recently left the monetary board of the Bangko Sentral of the Philippines, a cushy job given to him after being involved. On the other hand, we have whatever happened to those courageous individuals who risk life, family, and comfort, and career to speak the truth. General Francisco Gudani, head of Task Force Lanao, originally assigned as head of Task Force Lanao. He fearlessly testified on the massive fraud in Lanao del Sur. He initiated a campaign for electoral reform. Status, retired. Vidal Doble, leaked the existence of Project Lighthouse, spoke in the Senate, status, whereabouts unknown. Every now and then you see him, but... Michael Angelo Suse, Abdullah Dalidig. Abdullah Dalidig, by the way, recently passed maybe a year or two ago. He died a destitute. He wasn't even rewarded for his role exposing the truth. Attorney Samuel Sammy Ong, Deputy Director, NBI. He released the 3-hour Mother of All tapes, a brave NBI officer who fought for the truth but had to hide because there was an arrest warrant against him. He died in May 22, 2009. Alexander Balutan, member of Task Force Lanao, worked with General Gudani in Task Force Lanao, now a Brigadier General, currently head of the 1st Marine Brigade in Sultan Kudarat. The best deterrent to corruption, Mr. President, is to punish the wrongdoers and reward legitimate whistleblowers. I stress legitimate because many are now coming out of the woodwork, volunteering to be whistleblowers, pero alam naman natin puno pa rin sila ng kasinungalingan. There's a difference between the intention of a patriot and that of a snitch or a weasel. One is a selfless act to uphold the truth, the other is a selfish one to save his or her own hide. We need to distinguish and protect a true whistleblower. We need to pass a Whistleblower Protection Act. Together with my declaration of support for the immediate enactment of the Whistleblowers Protection Act, I filed Senate Resolution number 679, calling for the omnibus review of the Electoral Code of the Philippines. The resolution seeks to assess the provisions of Batas Pambansa 881, in particular the provisions on the new election fraud situations and the implication of information technology, innovation, and hardware on such election offenses. Likewise, a review of the following laws are in order: the institutionalization of an automated system of election and the additional reforms in the electoral system such as those in Republic Acts 8436, 9369, 7166, etc. By institutionalizing reforms, we protect not only the present generation, but especially future generations. The silver lining in this unfortunate travesty is that the Filipino people finally realize the urgent need to reform our electoral system and help facilitate our country's migration from manual to automated elections. Automated elections, though less than perfect, substantially lessen the possibility of human intervention and error, reduced the opportunity for fraud, and abbreviated the long, tedious procedure of canvassing. Candidates spend less because they do not have to hire a poll watcher for every precinct. Concurrent with the resolution I filed this morning, I will be submitting legislation that will address the new dynamics of automated elections, reformulate our outdated laws by creating a new set of penalties for computer-aided, technology-driven election offenses. We need to prevent high-tech election fraud that can make a mockery of our electoral system once again. Likewise, the anti-wiretapping law should be amended to include not only terrorism, espionage, and other crimes involving national security, but also election fraud as one of the crimes in which a court could legally authorize a wiretap. Last May 26, I filed Senate Resolution number 670 urging the Committee on Electoral Reforms to conduct a study in aid of legislation on the effectiveness of the anti-wiretapping law in preventing election fraud and similar offenses. We need to equip the proper authorities with the proper tools so they can successfully detect, preempt, and prosecute would-be cheaters and unscrupulous defrauders of elections. Moreover, I will also be proposing the prescriptive period for election offenses be increased from the current 5 years to 10 years. As we have seen, almost none of the Garci boys or those mentioned in the Hello Garci tapes have spent a day in jail simply because they enjoyed protection from the powers that be. The President is also immune from suit for the duration of his or her 6-year term. Thus, no charges can be filed against Mrs. Arroyo for her complicity in the 2004 election fraud until her term ended in 2010. Mrs. Arroyo became president through fraudulent means. What she had was merely a mandate manufactured for her by her election operators. This ultimately proved to be her weakness. Mrs. Arroyo had no real mandate and no moral ascendancy. That's why she became utterly dependent on those unscrupulous individuals who helped manufacture her mandate. And this dependence has only resulted in a cycle of never-ending series of corruption scandals during her 9 years in office. The NBN ZTE deal, the fertilizer fund scam, the Jose Pidal accounts, the overpriced Macapagal Boulevard, NAIA Terminal 3 fiasco, the Euro Generals Pabaon scandal, North Rail Project, Wetting Gate. The list and litany of corruption goes on and on. Mr. President, we should prevent these from happening again. We should ensure that our right to vote and to choose our leaders are protected. Robert F. Kennedy once said, "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of those acts will be written the history of this generation. Mr. President, many of our colleagues here have worked with FPJ, either in the film industry or during the '04 campaign. I'm sure they've witnessed his generosity, humility, and genuine spirit. FPJ identified with the poor. He felt their pain. He was for them, unlike others who profess to be but act otherwise. Ang iba ay nagsabi, sayang naman, bakit pa pumasok sa politika si FPJ? Nasayang lang ang kanyang pagtakbo. Ngunit hindi po nasayang. Ang ehemplong ipinakita ni FPJ tulad ng tunay na pagkalinga sa kapwa at dahil nga sa nangyaring dayaan, ang pagpapatunay na mahalaga ang bawat boto ng Pilipino. Mahirap man o mayaman, isa-isa lang nga ang ating boto, sabi nga ng ating kasamang Senator Cheese Escudero. Ang boto ng bawat isa ay higit na sapat upang sabihin na siya ay nagtagumpay. When FPJ was asked what he thought about the events following the elections, he spoke for the most marginalized members of society when he answered, "Huwag natin alisin ang pag-asa sa ating mga kababayan. Baka yun na lang ang natitira sa kanila." And so, Mr. President, please allow me to pay tribute not just to my father, but to the millions of Filipinos who waited long hours under the heat and rain and who made the long journey just to cast their vote, sometimes under dangerous conditions, and those who came out to defend the truth even in the most trying times. Mr. President, this is for them.
Ang inyong napanood ay ang privileged speech ni Senador Grace Poe kaugnay ng Hello Garci scandal at ang kanyang mga mungkahi laban sa dayaan sa eleksyon.